Jar of Flies is Alice in Chains' third studio EP. It was recorded over the course of 1 week from September 7th to 14th, 1993 at London Bridge Studios in Seattle, and was released on January 25th, 94. Much like their previous EP, Sap, Jar of Flies features a lot of acoustic work, though there are some heavier songs on the record, including I Stay Away, which was actually nominated for the Grammy for Best Hard Rock Performance. The EP was also nominated for the Grammy for Best Recording Package, which essentially is the Grammy for Best Artwork. Jar of Flies was the first record the band recorded after Dirt. Now, despite the fact that Dirt was a major success, the band actually found themselves homeless when they returned to Seattle from the '93 Lollapalooza tour. They had been evicted from their residence after having failed to pay rent. Subsequently, the now homeless band decided to move into London Bridge Studios in Seattle, the studio where the band had recorded much of their material over the years. The Lollapalooza tour ended that year on August 7th, meaning exactly 1 month later, September 7th, the newly homeless band had begun recording their next record. The recording session would be the first with new Alice in Chains bassist Mike Inez, which was partly why the band wanted to get into the studio, to see how things would go with Mike. According to drummer Sean Kinney, "We did Jar of Flies to see how it was to record with Mike Inez. We just went into the studio with no songs written to check out the chemistry. It all fell into place." As mentioned, though there are some heavier moments on the record, Jar of Flies is largely acoustic based. According to Layne Staley, "We just wanted to go into the studio for a few days with our acoustic guitars and see what happened. We never really planned on the music we made at the time to be released, but the record label heard it and they really liked it. For us, it was just the experience of 4 guys getting together in the studio and making some music. After playing loud music for a year, we'd come home and the last thing we wanted to do was crank up the amps right away. The stuff was written on buses and whenever we had downtime." Alice in Chains are credited as the producer for the record, and it was mixed and engineered by Toby Wright. Jerry Cantrell had called Toby Wright during the Lollapalooza tour to see if he'd be interested in collaborating on a record together. Toby Wright was interested, and during the recording session, he put a lot of focus particularly on the sound of Jerry Cantrell's acoustic guitar. In Toby's words, "At some points we overdubbed some acoustics with miking those acoustics, but when they were recording live off the floor, I'd use whatever pickups Jerry Cantrell had in his guitars at the time, trying to keep that sound as close to acoustic sounding as possible, so that it sounded like it was an acoustic guitar instead of an electrified acoustic guitar." Toby Wright mixed the record in Los Angeles the following week at Scream Studio from September 17th to 22nd, and as mentioned, the session itself took place earlier from September 7th to 14th. The album cover for Jar of Flies was also shot the week of the recording session. Director and photographer Rocky Schenck, who by this point had worked with Alice in Chains multiple times, photographed the album cover on September 8th, 93 in his living room. The title of the album, Jar of Flies, was inspired by a 3rd grade science experiment Jerry Cantrell had. He overfed the flies in one jar and underfed the flies in another in order to see what would happen. Ultimately, the overfed flies multiplied quickly but then died from overcrowding, whereas the underfed flies managed to survive. This was the inspiration for both the album name and cover art. Photographer Rocky Schenck recalls the following. "The band had come up with the idea for the title and wanted the cover to be a young boy looking into a jar filled with flies. I remember they asked me to use crazy colors in the shot, so I utilized lots of different gels over the lights to achieve the final look." Upon its release, Jar of Flies entered the Billboard 200 charts at number 1, becoming the first ever EP to top the charts. In its first year alone, Jar of Flies sold 2,037,853 copies, and it sold an additional 1,000,000 copies after 2 years. Regarding the success of Jar of Flies, Jerry Cantrell said the following. "We couldn't believe that it did so well. The success of Jar of Flies showed us that we could do what we liked and that other people would like it too. The record was very well received by fans and critics alike, many of the critical reviews of the EP praising how the band was able to successfully blend various elements from across the spectrum of rock and roll, including elements of blues rock, classic rock, alternative rock, and jangle pop. In total, the EP charts at 30 minutes and 49 seconds. There are 7 songs on the EP: Rotten Apple, Nutshell, I Stay Away, No Excuses, Whale and Wasp, Don't Follow, and Swing on This. 3 of those songs, No Excuses, I Stay Away, and Don't Follow, were released as singles. Jonathan Plum was an engineering assistant during the recording of Jar of Flies. Here's a clip from an interview I did with him where he recalls a story from that recording session. If you guys like what you see, make sure to subscribe for more. Lots more to come.
I remember Layne coming in with his 4-track. What was the song about, hey...
Oh, that's Stay Away? I Stay Away? Yeah.
I Stay Away, yeah. I believe my memory was that Layne showed up with the cassette tape of those vocals demoed with the harmonies and everything that he did at home. That I think he probably just did at home like that day. And he showed up and played it for us. You know, he's playing for Jerry probably.
Yeah.
So I assume that he wrote those lyrics and wrote those harmonies. Oh, another quick memory was, we didn't talk about Layne, the way that they did harmonies. I mean, because that's one of my favorite things about Alice is the way that they did their harmonies. And then I think they had gotten so good at it, and Toby, the producer of Jar of Flies, knew too. So Layne would lay down a vocal track, and Toby would say, "You got a harmony for that?" And Layne was like, "Yeah, hit record." And then Layne would add a harmony, and then Toby would say, "You got another one?" He'd say, "Yeah, hit record." He had another harmony, and I think on that song we had like a stack of maybe 4 harmonies that he just went after another, and then Toby's like, Layne was like, "Yeah, I think that's it," and Toby's like, "Let's try one more. You got one more?" He's like, "I don't know. Wait, roll it." And it was that 5th one, he'd find that really twisted harmony that a lot of the Alice has. It has just like that kind of fucked up harmony. And that was Layne just finding it on the spot, It was sort of Toby pushing him, saying, let's just do one more.
That's so cool. So you said he recorded some stuff on a cassette at home. Did you guys ever use any of those home recordings?
No, I think those were just like examples. Yeah, we redid everything.